Eagles training camp is knocking at the door. The competition is going to be fast and fierce starting next week. But just because everyone thinks you're going to be a stud and a starter doesn't necessarily guarantee that's going to happen. There are plenty of really good Eagle players who are suddenly feeling a ton of pressure heading into the Birds' first practice. I'm Thomas Mott. This is the Thomas Mott Show. Eagles training camp, well, it's 1 week from today. I don't think we've had this much anticipation surrounding Eagles camp since maybe this quote.
Oh, dream team.
Not only do the Birds have a ton of fresh talent, but the coaching staff is entirely new, making it kind of a race against time to get all the pieces comfortable with one another. Most importantly, make sure everyone's on the same page when it comes to the new scheme and playbooks. And while sure, the Eagles are a team organization, it's a team effort, I think there are a bunch of Eagles suddenly feeling a ton of new pressure heading into next week due to other players really outperforming during OTAs. Oh, and by the way, I didn't hear from yesterday's winner of the Jalen Hurts Nike t-shirt giveaway. That was Joey Farrell 6102. So, as usual, Joey, you have till Monday, that's the official deadline, Monday to email me. All details down below. If Joey doesn't email me by Monday, slim chance, but still, if he doesn't, I'll redraw for that exact t-shirt giveaway for one of my subscribers who comments on this video. Down below, just comment Hurts to get yourself re-entered in case Joey doesn't give me an email by Monday. Now, in any other normal offseason, I think the Birds signing Devin White would be probably the biggest move of the entire month of March. Former all-world linebacker who's not only still very young, but also just a big name on a spot in the Eagles who famously had not a lot of big names in the past. But when you also signed Saquon Barkley and then put together an A-plus draft class and bring in a stud pass rusher like Bryce Huff, a one-year, pretty cheap prove-it deal for White has definitely gone to the back burner for most of the media. Now, in White's defense, this clip of Darius Slay, seemingly pretty darn pumped to get the Birds linebacker on Chris Long's podcast, should at least excite everybody.
Oh, man, great, man. He's very athletic, man, faster than what you think. Big guy, too. So, man, I was excited about that signing. I kind of had a vision. Right after we kind of played Tampa a little bit, I said, man, if Devin become a free agent, I could see him coming over here just because it feel like it's a fit for him. You know, we need a linebacker because, you know, you've been here.
Yeah.
We know we D-line driven.
Always.
You know, so it's D-line driven. So they just need the linebackers to be able to hit and run. And he does a good job of that. And he can cover. So that's one thing I think, besides, like, you know, we had TJ, you know, TJ Edwards I think he was amazing. Him and Kaiser was an amazing combination of like running, hitting, and cover. So I think Howie did a great job of finding that with Devin White.
But let's be real for a second. Devin White had a really rough 2023 campaign with the Bucs. At one point, Devin White claimed he wasn't able to play late in the season, kind of right around the time the Bucs were planning on benching him for KJ Britt, so you can kind of do the math there. I mean, even Bucs Nation detailed in their article at the time saying, quote, "This seems like a classic case of you can't fire me, I quit" from White. The Bucs' plan was to start Britt and then likely rubbed White the wrong way. He decided if he wasn't going to start, he wasn't going to play. The drama with White dates back to his trade request in the offseason, and now it seems that all the bad blood is coming to a head. Wouldn't be surprising to see the Bucs finish the season with White being inactive the rest of the way for parting ways as White prepares to hit free agency. But in White's defense, the past is the past, and a lot of times a change of scenery is what's best for a lot of young NFL players. Still, though, you can't deny there's a ton of pressure on Devin White to not only be good this year, but I think be a top 10 linebacker. And it's a room that's incredibly thin in Philadelphia. If White doesn't step up and folds under pressure and doesn't really play well like he did last season, you risk having to rely on Nakobe Dean to both perform well and stay healthy, or I guess Zach Bond or a rookie, and all of that is not the best idea. Now again, I'm not saying White's not going to be good this season. I actually was one of the people spearheading not only signing him, but once they signed him, I was very, very excited. I still am. But talking about pressure heading into training camp next week, there has got to be a massive amount on Devin White to just kind of be really, really good after a season where he really wasn't. Next, let's go over to offense, and we got to touch on Paris Campbell. The former Colts wide receiver, he did have his quote-unquote, I guess, breakout season back in 2022 when he caught 63 passes for 623 yards and 3 touchdowns. Now, that resulted in a solid free agent contract in 2023 with the New York Giants, but poor quarterback play surely contributed to Campbell only seeing 27% of the total offensive snaps on an already very weak wide receiver room in New York. Similar to White, the talent has shown up in the past, but last season was anything but impressive. And again, much like White, the Eagles Eagles wide receiver core, of course behind Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown, let's be very clear, is pretty darn thin. But they're all kind of blank pages that no one has any idea if they're going to turn out to anything special once camp starts. That alone should give Campbell a leg up, but I do think someone like Britton Covey might emerge as Campbell's top competition due to Covey's ability to play both on a wide receiver and also be really, really good on special teams, and he's been with Philadelphia for a while now. For example, let's pretend that both Britton Covey and Paris Campbell during training camp in the preseason seem kind of similar. They're viewed as equals. Wouldn't Philadelphia let go of Paris Campbell on a very cheap contract and stick with Covey because Covey can do multiple things, including return punts? Either way, in a receiver room that's dominated by the two stars at the top, Campbell seemingly has the catbird seat to be wide receiver 3, meaning the pressure's got to be on to not lose it to a player like Britton Covey. By the way, 2 players in, curious what you guys think. Give me one player down below in the comment section you think is facing an extraordinary amount of pressure heading into training camp. Now, I did want to mention the defensive line quickly here, and more specifically, Milton Williams. Now, he is entering a contract year in Philadelphia, which is already a big deal, and he's kind of been the Eagles guy the past couple of seasons that we all say at this time of the year, he's gonna finally break out. Problem is, he hasn't really done that, at least throughout his career. Yes, there's been plenty of flashes, don't get me wrong, but he's just kind of been a serviceable backup, and that's not going to land you a major contract next March. Williams needs to prove to the Eagles and the rest of the league that he's more than just a role player on the defensive line. And what better year to do that with Fletcher Cox finally retiring, seemingly creating a lot more playing time up front. Heck, Williams could even benefit from Jordan Davis, potentially also under a lot of pressure, not living up to expectations if he doesn't show out this year and get into shape, meaning he could get even more playing time along the Eagle defensive line. But he's got to prove he's ready for that, and there are plenty of Eagles behind him. I think Moro Ojomo is one of those players who are definitely going to try to steal as much playing time as physically possible, meaning Milton Williams has a lot of pressure on him this training camp. Now, yesterday, I mentioned Brian Baldinger raving about Mekhi Becton and how he's the Eagles' best run blocker and a real threat to start at right guard. And if that's true, the next player on our list has got to be Tyler Steen. He's going to be under a massive microscope once training camp begins. Now, to be fair, Steen has had plenty of praise heaped on him this past couple of months, including OTAs and minicamps by not only his teammates, but also someone who kind of matters in the whole argument, his offensive line coach, Jeff Stoutland.
He's a bigger body. He's a bigger, like I always look at, like, Brandon Brooks to me is that is the person, that's who you're looking for. Ain't many of them around. That's who you're looking for. Size, length of arms, explosive power, all these things, lower body flex, all these things are like all into one. And it's like, holy cow, how do you find these? And so you're always comparing everybody, in my mind, I'm comparing them like to him. How do they, he has a little bit of that, like a lot of that actually.
But Stout isn't the type of coach to just play Tyler Steen because he's a third-round draft pick, and we've been playing him at the position during the offseason, and so let's just give him the spot. If Becton now plays Steen, his physical attributes and the fact he's a former first-round pick are going to be very hard to ignore on the offensive line. And let's be honest, when it comes to your offensive line, just give me the best 5 players. I don't care if you're a first-round draft pick, a 7th-round draft pick, a UDFA. I don't care if your name says Johnson, my lot on the back. Give me the best 5 players to protect Jalen Hurts, create running lanes for Saquon Barkley, and if that's Becton, sorry, Tyler Steen, you're a 3rd-round draft pick, but you're going to the bench. Now, when thinking about this list, I wanted to add one final player who I don't think is under as much pressure as the previous 3, but I've not talked about him a lot this offseason. We have got to bring up at least his name, and that is Dallas Goedert. Now, he's entering the second to last year of his 4-year contract, and so he's not like Milton Williams and entering the final year of his deal, but he's only slated to make about $4 million in base salary in 2025, and technically, if they wanted to, the Birds have an out after this year. Now, I love Goedert. I think he's been a top 5 tight end, or at least has the talent to be a top 5 tight end throughout his entire career in Philadelphia. But last season was very lackluster, and besides a couple of the early games, the Birds kind of hardly used him. And while I'd blame that on the Eagles' high school offense, don't get me wrong, it's probably not Goedert's fault, he's still at, the 4th best option on an offense that includes A.J. Brown, Smitty, and Saquon? Goedert's got to have some sort of pressure just due to the nature of what the Eagles have done historically. I mean, remember, a couple years back, the Eagles had a stud tight end in Zach Ertz and then still replaced him with Dallas Goedert by drafting his replacement before Zach Ertz's contract was officially up. Good news for Goedert, though, is that the new offensive coordinator, Kellen Moore, he seems to, at least in Goedert's words, be in favor of utilizing the tight end way more this year than Brian Johnson did in 2023, telling the Eagles media earlier this month, quote, "I still feel like the best years are ahead of me. Kellen's been doing a great job of just making the offense make sense, and we've kind of changed up the reads and different things like that throughout. I feel like it'll play in favor of the tight end, the quick game a little bit, getting back to the pivots, the sticks that I caught earlier in my career, and that went away from a little bit. And I hope that's true. Goddard is an incredibly hard matchup nightmare for a ton of linebackers and safeties and nickel cornerbacks. I mean, he's one of the best pass-catching tight ends in the league. The problem is he's on an offense with some even better weapons on the outside. Still, though, he needs to have an impressive season, not only to make sure Philadelphia continues to make him tight end one for the long term, but also shows the rest of the league that it's not just Travis Kelce and George Kittle out there as tight end one in the NFL. By the way, I did my research on this. There were 7 games last season which Dallas Goedert played in where he had less than 30 yards receiving, including the playoff loss to the Tampa Bay Bucks. Not very good. Now, don't read this the wrong way. I love all these players. I think they're going to be major impacts on the Eagles' offense and defense heading into 2024, and I'm pumped to see what they can do this season. But you can't argue that all 4 of these players have a significant amount of pressure, I think more than a lot of their counterparts. Devin White to be linebacker 1 after being benched last year, that's a big deal. Paris Campbell should win the wide receiver 3 spot. If he doesn't, not a good look. Milton Williams, you got to step up at some point in your career. That now's really not a better time than ever. And of course, Dallas Goedert, last year, not that great. New offense, they're going to feature you more. Let's have a good camp 88. All 4 of these players, and I'm sure plenty of others I'll read in the comments section, need to step up and have a big training camp period and not worry about the pressure that is inevitably on their shoulders right now. We have plenty more stuff happening the next couple of days and weeks, hopefully locking down some interviews. I'm still working on that. Again, no guarantees. It's tough out here to go ahead and lock down interviews, but we got plenty of them in the past and hopefully more in the future. We'll have our Wednesday link live tomorrow night as well. Sure to comment Hurts just in case Joey doesn't claim the Hurts shirt. You never know. You could be the winner of that one. I'm Thomas Mott. This has been the Thomas Mott Show.